Welcome everyone, and thanks for attending this Office 365 Con focus session sponsored by GFI Software. GFI is a software company focusing on network security, communications, and management. GFI develops smartly engineered IT solutions that are easy to use and provide a tailored approach to monitoring, controlling, and reporting on network activities, enabling flawless operation of critical applications from end to end. We encourage you to use the questions panel during today's session to submit any questions or comments you have, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can. Any questions that our speaker is not able to address before we conclude will be shared with him for follow-up with you afterwards by email. Our speaker today is Joseph Kachala. As GFI sales engineer for the EMEA and APAC regions, Joseph's focus is cybersecurity and network management, and he's an expert on GFI's Exinda Network Orchestrator solution. Well, thank you for joining us today, Joseph, and welcome to TechGenics Office 365 Con.
Thank you very much, Roger, and I'm very happy to be here, so we can start right away. Since we are going to talk about the Office 365, we need to firstly explain what is the situation with the cloud or why people are moving to the cloud. It's no secret that every single company wants to reduce their costs, and one of these steps of reducing the costs is obviously the migration to the cloud. Because when you are moving to the cloud, you don't need to have the infrastructure, you don't need to have on-premise servers, on-premise solutions, at least not the full branch of them as you had before. So there are a lot of applications which people are using in the cloud. We can name Office 365, we can name SAP, we can name a lot of others. But since the cloud is fixing a lot of our issues, it's also bringing a lot of new challenges on the table. And one of the main challenges are basically the user learning curve, the data migration, security concerns, limited resources, and poor user experience. So I wouldn't lie to you, the Exinda Network Orchestrator is not able to help you with all the challenges which you will face likely when migrating to the cloud. But definitely we are able to help you with limited resources or poor user experience. Before we'll get on to how we are doing it or how we can help you with Office 365 and its bad performance, let's cover why people are using Office 365 in the first place. I mentioned it's a cloud application and it's pretty much still understood as a new cloud application. So we still see a lot of companies migrating to Office 365. They are going there or they are using the service mainly because you can find everything under one roof. You can find the collaboration tools, you can find the business tools. I don't need to continue. I believe that most of you are aware what Office 365 has to offer. And that's the reason why people are moving to it. User experience is very important, and 65% of all companies around the globe very well understand this. Bad experience has a direct impact on the adoption of new applications, which can harm or slow down our businesses. I mentioned Office 365 already a few times, and it's definitely one of the crucial applications in the modern business. But still, 50% of companies worldwide are claiming that they had or they experienced performance issues with use of Office 365. So I mentioned Office 365, and there are all other applications out there. For example, Salesforce is very popular or Zoom is very popular. But the migration and the adoption of new cloud applications will continue to do. We can see the explanation on the right side of the slide. We can see that companies will continue to invest into new applications which are sitting in the cloud. And in matter of fact, it is predicted that till the end of 2020, on average, companies will use at least 7 cloud business applications. This will also generate few things. And what is typically happening in the network is that important applications, which we already mentioned a few times, will fight over the limited resources with all other applications which are installed on our cell phones, on our tablets, on our laptops, on our smartwatches, or even the applications which our company installed on our on-premise servers or already in the cloud infrastructure. So we have a lot more in our networks which will pretty much compete for the resources, and this will result definitely into bad or limited performance and not reliable service for our critical applications where we can definitely add the Office 365. Let's have a look how a typical company will be reacting to this issue, how a typical company will observe this. So users, they are very important. We all behind right now, we are all users. Of course, some of us could be also owners of the companies, but still at the end, we can be all users. So definitely, users will start complaining. But the thing is that they will not start complaining as a first thing when they will see bad performance. They will first try to, find their own ways how they can do their own work. And these own ways will, of course, take some time, maybe take some money, and they will have a negative impact on the user performance. And after they will explore that, sorry, I can't really find another way how I can do it, so I need to go back to the application which is obviously suffering, and I need to fight with it. And then the users obviously will start to bring these complaints to their managers, to the IT departments, or even to the owners of the businesses. And the owner of the business, of course, he will be very unhappy because no one will want to use the application which has a bad performance. If no one wants to use it, then the revenue will drop. Of course, there could be some brand damage as well. And along with it, the customers will not be happy. And if there will be another competitor, out there on the market, he can easily approach the end customers and he can acquire them since they are already not happy. Finally, we will mention the IT department, so the good old administrator. As you know, the administrators, they have a lot of things on their plates nowadays, and if there will be a performance issue, their main focus will go on to the performance issue. That means they will try to solve it with limited tools they have in place, and with their focus purely on this, they will literally not be doing anything else. That means that all the other tasks, let's say all the migration tasks or I don't know, other issues will simply go side away, and this will also generate some issues later on, maybe also some negative impact on the revenue. Gartner, I believe that this name is pretty known, and Gartner already a couple of times predicted what we already experienced last year in 2019. And the thing is that half of global Office 365 deployment will suffer from a performance problems caused by networking issue. So I'm not making up that Office 365 has a performance issue. Yeah, it's quite certain, and 50% of companies already experience that. The thing is that it's not purely an issue of Microsoft. I'm not saying this. It's issue of how we are getting and using the application. So it's an issue of our network connectivity, our WAN connection. So Gartner also said that a WAN optimization could be used to enhance Office 365 performance, and exactly where we are experiencing latency or a bandwidth is constrained. So now let's address what we can do, what an Exinda Network Orchestrator can do to help with Office 365 performance, or literally with any other cloud application performance. So one of the main features of Exinda Network Orchestrator, and those features will be also explained later on during the live demonstration. The first one is the visibility. The second main feature is the control. Of course, Exinda has a lot of other features, but mainly those two are the ones which are going to help directly with the bad performance. When it comes to the visibility, I mean total visibility into all network applications. It's not enough to know only that I'm using business applications such as Office 365 or SAP or Skype or Dropbox or Twitter, or I don't know what other business applications we can mention. We need to know all the applications, not only business related, also those who are pretty much used for pleasure. Yeah, so we call them in general recreational applications. So the key with visibility function is to see everything. Once we see everything, then we can identify which of those applications really matter to our business. Because in most cases, I see that people are not acknowledging, for example, Skype as business critical application. And when they have a conference call which has a very poor quality, then they are realizing or they are thinking about changing the application. But they are never thinking about that these applications might be fighting for limited resources with all the other recreational applications out there. So the first step after the full visibility is to acknowledge which of those applications matter the most. After we acknowledge that, then we can take the whole information to another level. Another level in our case would be to prioritize the applications, to purely say that yes, these applications, Skype, Office 365, Microsoft Exchange, Dropbox, Lotus Notes, you name it. These applications are important. They should receive all the resources needed to have the best performance possible. And all the other applications, as you can see the small icons on the bottom of the screen, YouTube or WhatsApp or Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, all of these applications will go down. That means that their performance will go lower, but we don't care because those applications are not driving our revenue. So in this case, they could easily suffer and we should not be caring about this at all. Now let's focus purely on the Office 365 and directly name a few things which we can do to help. So I mentioned already a few times that we can prioritize the applications. So if the Office 365 is considered as business critical and we are running the PowerPoint, the Excel, Word, and or the Outlook or Teams and all these other fancy tools which are part of Office 365, it makes sense to prioritize them. So we will reserve enough bandwidth for the Office 365. And we are doing it with use of policies. So on this example, we can see that Office 365 has its own policy where we are guaranteeing 20% of all the available bandwidth. On bandwidth, we are currently looking as a business critical resource. It's no longer just an internet connection. It's a business critical resource. And with this policy, we can also use the unused bandwidth to boost the performance of Office 365. So normally it will use only 20%, but if all other policies, if other applications running in the network will currently not be in use, the Office 365 can burst up to 50% of available bandwidth. And of course, we cannot give Office 365 20% just like out of the blue. We are not able to give the bandwidth to Office 365 without limiting the other applications as well. So we can build other policies to limit or to discard certain other applications or certain other traffic, such as software updates or peer-to-peer traffic. Yeah, from the software updates perspective, it doesn't really matter if the update will be downloading 5 minutes or 10 minutes. We don't care because there is no direct impact on the performance. Nobody is waiting for that update to be actually downloaded. When we are comparing to the Teams, which is one of the tools embedded in the Office 365, in this case, I believe we can all agree that performance will matter, because if I can't hear the person on the other side of the link, then I'm not really able to use that application, right? And finally, with Exinda Network Orchestrator, after discovering, limiting, and producing the policies, we are able to track the performance of those applications. This is very important because the administrators, at first, yes, let's give them the tools to put everything in order, but then let's give them also a tool which will help them to evaluate the performance of those applications which they are controlling. And the Exinda Network Orchestrator can very, very much do this. This is an example, and also I'll show you that example in the live demo in a minute. And in this example, we can see all the information, what are the internal hosts, the external hosts which are using Office 365, and we can also see what is the performance score of Office 365. In this case, it's 8.12, which in my opinion is not great, but it's not definitely going to cause any issues. But we can still go better with this. And since we already know that the performance, what is the level of the performance, then we can play a bit more with the policies to get the performance on the bigger score, on a better number. And now let's have a look on how Exinda looking in live. So you can access Exinda with web user interface, simply logging in, and you'll immediately see a dashboard. On the dashboard, you can see a very granular information about what is happening in the network. If there is an issue, likely you will already spot it after the logging in the Exinda. On the left side, you can see the top 8 inbound and outbound application groups. So you can see what is taking the biggest portion of your internet bandwidth. These application groups are already predefined and they're already coming with the Exinda solution. Of course, you are able to control and you are able to define what other applications are part of those groups. But immediately we can see that social media or social network are over here, voice over IP, or a group which is called the other. So in this case, we will need to investigate later on what applications are part of the group called other. On the bottom of this, we can see the recreational traffic. Also, we can see how much time we spent on this recreational traffic. So we can see that instant messaging, in this case, 1 minute. And we can see social networking, in this case, again, 1 minute. So I believe that in normal circumstances, in normal companies, there will be a lot more than just the 1 minute, but this Exinda is deployed in my home, and I'm not a huge fan of instant messaging or social networking, so you don't see a big amount of time spent on those applications. But still, let's have a look what is behind of social networking. So we can easily just click on it, and we can immediately see that LinkedIn, Facebook Encrypted, YouTube, or Facebook Chat have been used in pretty much today. Yeah, we can always change the range. We can change it, for example, to last 60 minutes, and we can see that now the majority is taken by LinkedIn, and then we have Facebook Encrypted and Facebook Chat, no YouTube. So let's get back to dashboard, and let's go on the right side of the screen. So over here, you can see the information about the link utilization. You can always zoom in, you can zoom out, you can scroll around, and you can also recognize spikes in the network. And each time there is a spike, you can easily just click with your mouse on the spike, and immediately Exinda will tell you what applications are behind, what was the reason of this network spike. And in this case, we can see that Gmail, then Office 365, and HTTPS were the applications responsible for this spike. And on the bottom, we can see the prioritization rate. This number is basically indicating how often Exinda was basically, how often it had to reprioritize the packets, how often it had to shape the traffic in order to meet the performance, the needed performance of the applications. And final piece of the dashboard over here is the Exinda recommendation engine. This is basically a note, a side note, which is Exinda giving you each time there is something new in the network. Yeah. So if just out of the blue you're going to start to use WhatsApp and you never used WhatsApp before, so Exinda will definitely put this application into the recommendation. It will tell you something like, this application was here for the first time, and maybe you want to create a policy to control this application, right? So as I said before, the dashboard is already relieving a lot of information, but most of the visibility part, which I mentioned during the presentation, is in the monitor section. Over here, you can go through all the different views of what is happening in the network. Most of the users, most of the administrators will start their journey with the application section, because obviously everything is currently about the application performance, about the application speed, about the application quality. So naturally, we would like to see what applications are used in my network. So I changed the view to last 60 minutes, but please remember, you can always change it to the view which will fit you the most. And in the last 60 minutes, we can see that GoToMeeting, Gmail, Citrix, Unclassified, Office 365, Skype, HTTPS, and Google APIs are listed in top applications on the inbound. On the outbound, we can see very similar position of the same applications. So those are the top applications, but of course, at those same 60 minutes, there is a lot more which is happening in my network. We can see Skype as well. We can see DNS. We can see LinkedIn, Google Play, Facebook Chat, Facebook Encrypted, Amazon Cloud, and the list goes on and on. I mean, well, not so on and on, but still a lot of more applications which are over there. But I'm going to change the view, let's say, to last 30 days, then the list will be much more bigger, at least 5 more pages, okay, six more pages in total. So a lot of applications which are running over there. Uber, I don't actually remember using a Uber these days, but you never know what your cell phone is doing. So the applications are definitely one of the main sections where people are going. Now, during the dashboard description, I mentioned you that we'll definitely have a look on the groups, and here we are. So let's have a look of what applications are part of group named Other. So we can just easily click on that group and we can see several applications over here which are part, and pretty much all of these applications are not part of any other group. And you could create your groups from scratch. You can define which applications are going to be part of that group, and so on and so on. So we can see that GoToMeeting, we can see WebEx, Voyo, World of Tanks, Skype Video, Gmail, Office 365 are all part of group called Other. But we can see that the king of the applications in the group is this application, which is actually a custom application which I defined, and I'll explain that later on. We can always take a look on greater details where we can see the efficiency, we can see the transaction delays, we can see the server delays, we can see the round trip time. So it's not only the information, yes, this application is in your network. It's a lot more which will help you to understand not only the performance of the application, but also the overall impact and consumption of that application. As we move forward, we can have a look on the users, because yeah, it's good to know what applications are running, but eventually you want to know which person is using those applications. Yeah. So in my case, you know, it's a small deployment in my house, so we cannot really expect a huge bunch of users. I would be quite surprised if we will have more than 2 users actually. So we can see administrator and myself. So let's have a look on what administrator is doing. So we can just easily click on him, and we can see that these are the top applications which are being used by the administrator. As before, we can always click on show more details, and in this case we can also go to see different views. So these are only the applications used by administrator, but we can also take a look on the conversations which have been used by administrator, or go to URLs, so pretty much the URLs visited by the administrator, and finally to see the hosts. The users are synced with Active Directory. This gives you a lot of freedom, and also it will save a lot of time. The reason why it is going to save a lot of time is that when you are building a policies, you don't need to specify the policy per host. That means per device or IP address. You can easily specify the policies per user. That means that each time user will log in into a computer with use of his Active Directory credentials, he will take all the policies with him. So there is simply no way he can run away from already set up policies. And we can clearly see that over here, that the administrator is pretty much using different computers or different devices in the network. As we move away from the users, we can go directly on the hosts, which we already pretty much mentioned during the explanation. And in this case, we will see a lot of IP addresses. Well, again, my network is small, so not big numbers of IP addresses, but in the regular deployment with the Exinda, you'll see pretty much all the devices which are communicating towards the internet. So again, as before, you can see the top listeners, top talkers, and you can see the full list of IP addresses over here. If you are interested in what are those devices doing, you can just easily click on the device, and you can see all the applications which are basically being used on that device. Yeah, so I clicked on this IP, and we can see that YouTube is the king, and it's the most used application in this IP. Also on the graph over here, we can see exactly when YouTube was actually used in last 30 days. And if we'll go, let's say, to last 24 hours, we can see that pretty much this device was not consuming the internet resources at all. So we can go just to 7 days, and we can see again a certain section when YouTube was used again, and we can see also how much data it consumed. All of these looks are very fancy, and they will help you to understand what is happening in the network, who is using the network, which user, which host, what applications are consuming the most of resources. Of course, there is also a better view which will give you a direct answer what is happening right now. We can see some other applications which are running in my network right now, and we can see the values over here. This view is typically being used when you want to define your own application, and this is exactly what I would like to explain you right now. You saw a lot of things: users, IP addresses, protocols, transfer rates, a lot of things in the reporting or in the visibility section. The majority of those things are definitely coming directly from the Exinda since day one. But to make this as detailed as possible, you are able to define objects. So in the objects, you can, for example, define VLANs. So in case that your network is running multiple VLANs, you can define them, and VLANs will help you to distinguish or create policies better. Then you can define the protocols and, of course, the applications. I mentioned the top application, which I showed you over there, was a custom application. I'll show you how it is built. So the Exinda is already coming with around 2,300 applications. So those are already part of the package, and Exinda will discover them immediately since day one. But of course, there are a lot of custom applications developed by the company or for a specific company. And in this case, you can define them. So if I'll go to S, where my custom application was, we can see this is it. So this was the top application I used. And if we go to edit, we can see how it is built. So pretty much all the applications are defined or are created with use of layer 7 signatures, network objects, protocol, TCP or UDP ports. With use of these, you are able to define pretty much everything. So this application pretty much is a website from where I'm downloading stuff like software or films or graphical data. So this website, as all other websites, are HTTPS. So to define this website as an application, because I want to control it, I'm using SSL as the layer 7 signature. Then the Exinda is able to read the common name from the certificate. So this is what I'm using to fine-tune and specify the traffic. So I'm using the common name, and then I'm using the name of the domain to finally tune the application. So very easy and very fast how you can build the application, and from that point on, you're able to create policies with use of that application. Another thing that you can also create in the objects is the schedules. And schedules are being used to provide you better control over the policies and over the applications. And of course, the network objects are also very important, and they also help you to build better reports and to build better policies. The network object, it could be, for example, a group of IP addresses which are sitting in the branch office, because obviously the branch office traffic would be definitely treated in a different way as the local traffic. The same could apply on different other things. You can have, for example, a special network group for IoTs or for VPNs or for all different kinds of traffic. So we can specify all the objects on the left side when you go to the configuration section. Now let's go to the optimizer and let's talk about the second biggest feature of the Exinda Network Orchestrator, which is the control. The control is happening with the use of policies and virtual circuits. So the policies and virtual circuits are listed in the tree hierarchy. So that means that the Exinda will process it always from top to the bottom. So in this case, I'm having a 600 meg connection. Yeah, so this is my 100%, and this 100% I'm dividing between essentially 3 virtual circuits. Yeah, so I have a virtual circuit called Office 365, a virtual circuit called the main VC, and the virtual circuit called the IoT. So in this case, I'm giving to Office 365 virtual circuit 15% of total bandwidth. Then I'm giving 80% to the main virtual circuit, and 1% is left for the IoTs. So the virtual circuit is the first wave of segmentation, or the first step of how to divide the traffic in the network. So we will have a look on how this virtual circuit is built. Is that I'm scheduling this virtual circuit to be operating always. I'm giving it 15% of bandwidth. No connection limits. It's all on automatic. It's for all the VLANs. It's for all the network objects. So it doesn't need to be branch office communication. I'm not specifying any users. I'm not specifying anyone in this case. I'm only specifying that this virtual circuit will apply only on Office 365 traffic at both directions. So what this is helping is that each time someone in my network will open Office 365, immediately he will receive 15% of bandwidth. Well, this is where he can get. And then I have two policies over here, and these policies will be used only when someone will use Office 365, and then it will be better segmented. So in this case, I'm treating source called Mampu, and this source will pretty much only consume 10% only when they will use the Office 365. And if I will go back to the optimizer, I have another policy just for HR, and this HR will be able to consume 15%, but the policy again will be only active when Office 365 will be active, because I'm telling this virtual circuit that it will only be caring about the Office 365 traffic. So pretty much I can guarantee the traffic for Office 365 through multiple ways, and also I can create the policy over here if I want. Okay, so let's have a look on how the policies are actually being built. To be able to describe this, first we need to say a few things about the virtual circuits. The virtual circuits are there to pretty much help you with the segmentation of the network traffic. The virtual circuit can take a certain portion from available bandwidth, and you can have multiple virtual circuits at the same time. The virtual circuit is pretty much defined with the amount of bandwidth it's taking from the main circuit, the schedule, so when it is operational, then the filter options, where you can easily choose if you want to distinguish this virtual circuit only for a specific VLAN or only for a specific network object or specific user or a group of users. Finally, if you want to specify the virtual circuits according to a certain application or a direction. The virtual circuit can also be done with a dynamic way, and in this case we can treat all the hosts equally. That means that they will all get the same portion of bandwidth, or we can specify what will be the portion of bandwidth they will receive. In the virtual circuit, you are going to build all the policies, and these policies, the percentage of bandwidth which the policies will have, will be actually taken from the percentage of the virtual circuit. So as you can see, I have a lot of policies over here. So let's have a look on the Facebook application policy. So in this case, the policy is always running. We want to optimize the traffic. We are guaranteeing 1% of the bandwidth with available burst of 4% of available bandwidth. Remember that the burst will always be available only when all other policies, which I have over here, will not consume their bandwidth. That means that these 1% or these 3% over here will be available, and in this case the Facebook will be in the queue, and according to the priority it will receive the available bandwidth. And finally, let's have a look on the filters over here, where we can filter the Facebook traffic according to the specific VLAN or the source, which again could be a network object, so the IP address or the bunch of IP addresses or a specific user. The same could be done on the destination. We can also distinguish according to the TOS or the HCP number. And finally, we are choosing the applications. In this case, it's Facebook. And as you can see, the Exinda has a very big visibility into Facebook traffic in general. So we can tell the difference between the Facebook chat or the Facebook audio or the Facebook cloud video or the Facebook web or stream or file transfer, you name it. The creation of policies is very easy. So you can just click on the create new policy. You can type in the name. So let's say the Office 365, since this is the main topic for today, we can guarantee the bandwidth, let's say 6% with possible burst of going to 30. We can put the burst priority on 1. So that means that each time there will be available bandwidth, the Office 365 will compete with all other policies with the same priority. let's choose that this policy will only apply for VLAN 2. And let's say that this will be all TOCP and DSC number, all destination and all sources. And obviously the application in this case will be Office 365. So done. This is the policy for Office 365. We just need to save to confirm. And yeah, let's put the Office 365 also higher in the hierarchy. So let's give it a different policy number. Yeah, and it will be the second policy in the virtual circuit. That means that if the policies will be fight against each other for the burst bandwidth, the Office 365 will be on the second place, because as you can see, the priority 1 is already on multiple different policies. But in this case, the Office 365 will be second in the queue. So it's likely that it's going to receive the available bandwidth. So as I mentioned during the slides, once you build the policies and you are going to control the traffic, it's good to know how good or how bad the traffic is performing, how the application is performing. For that, you can take advantage of the Solution Center, where you can build a custom reports with respect on the performance of the application. So let's have a look on Office 365. And over here, we can see on the right side the internal hosts and also the external hosts. We can see on the timeline during the last 7 days how often or when the Office 365 was actually being used. And in the bottom, we can see what is the score, what is the performance of the Office 365 in my network. And in this case, the performance is very good. It's on 9, and of course, it can still be better. And we can play a little bit more with the policy we just created. We can, for example, add more bandwidth to it, or put it higher in the hierarchy, or just limit all the other applications or all the other policies put lower with their consumption. So there are a lot of things which we can do. But for that, I encourage you to have a look on our website, or to go to demo.exinda.com, where you can pretty much play with the Exinda and create your own policies. This demo could be created for 60 up to 120 minutes. And the only thing is that the data over there will be fake, but you can create the policies, you can limit the traffic, you can do whatever you want. And this is all from the live demo. So now over to you, Roger.
Well, thank you, Joseph. We do have several questions that we can go over. The first one is, where would Exinda typically sit in the network?
That's a very good question. Thank you very much. And pretty much the best scenario for Exinda is to sit in line. That means that the Exinda will be between your core switch and between the firewall or the router. And all the traffic will pass through the Exinda transparent bridge or bridges.
All right, the next question we have is Exinda considered to be an application or an appliance?
The Exinda is an appliance, and in this case, it could be a hardware appliance or a software appliance, virtual appliance. And of course, the sizing will be different according to deployment scenarios and the size of the infrastructure.
Very good. And we just have time for one more question, and that is, can you speak a little bit about how Exinda is licensed?
Yeah, the Exinda is licensed per bandwidth. Yeah, so if you are looking into having an Exinda with the small infrastructure, just let's say 100 meg of bandwidth, then the device, the Exinda license will be definitely cheaper than in bigger environments where you're looking into shape, let's say 10 or 15 or 20 gig connection.
Very good. Well, that is all the time we have. Our next session will be beginning shortly. So I want to thank you, Joseph, for joining us today. And we want to thank GFI Software for sponsoring today's focus session. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. Our next session will begin very shortly. The link to join that session is provided in your email confirmation, and it's also available at the Twitter hashtag Office365Con. That's hashtag Office365Con. You may now disconnect from this session, and we hope to see you again very shortly. Thank you.